Alright, so now we're going to be talking about making an amalgam restoration. First we're going to talk about the equipment we'll need. They'll all be found in your restorative cassette you get from Miguel. The first items you need are the amalgam carrier, which is this, and a little metal bowl that is inside your cassette. What this is used for is transferring the amalgam from here into the tooth. Next, you will need your condensers. They're basically just cylinders on the instrument, and they are used to push the amalgam into the restoration. There are different sizes. Then you have your burnishers. This is called a football burnisher, and this is called an acorn burnisher, and they are to smooth the amalgam, get rid of excess amalgam, and to create anatomy. And finally, we have our Amalgam Carvers. We have our cleoid, discoid, and our half Hollenbach, and they're used to get rid of the excess amalgam and to carve anatomy into the tooth. Alright, so to get the amalgam to mix, you take the capsule and you place it inside the amalgamator. And you pull it, you put it in the rounded end first, and you push it down, and it clicks into its place. You push down the cover and you hit start, and it just shakes it back and forth for 10 seconds. Just wait for 10 seconds, and afterwards you have about 10 minutes until the amalgam sets. Alright, so first we take apart the capsule and put the amalgam inside the metal container. Then I like to put my finger underneath the amalgam carrier lever to prevent it from closing down when I'm getting the amalgam. So you crush the amalgam into the amalgam carrier. You can fill both sides so that you have easy access to them.
What do you redo? Like, do you have to do the whole thing? Both of them, or?
Then you take your amalgam to the prep and you press down on the lever. And then as you're pressing, you move across your prep. Then you take your smallest condenser and begin condensing the amalgam into the prep. You want to first maybe tap lightly to get all the amalgam in the same place, but afterwards you want to really condense hard. You want to hear a crunching sound, and you want to it sounds like almost like a creaking door, and you'll feel the amalgam getting harder as you push down. Use the small amalgam condenser and get really into all the little cracks, because if there's a void and you didn't condense well, the amalgam might flake off and it might break as you condense with the larger condensers. So now I'm going to switch to the other end of this condenser. It's a little bit wider. And I'm getting all the corners condensed really, really nicely. And I'm pushing pretty hard. This is a lot of force I'm putting down onto the type dot. I'm going to add the rest of the amalgam that I had inside the other end of the amalgam carrier now, and I'm going to overfill the prep. This is really important so that you condense the margins very nicely, and so that you can carve away anatomy later on. So now I'm going to move to the large condensers. Bring up all the amalgam more towards the center of the prep. And begin condensing with force. When I'm condensing the occlusal portion of the restoration, I want to kind of push more towards the side, following the cusp and up. So that way I condense the margins very nicely. Alright, after you overfilled and condensed, use the football burnisher to push the amalgam around. This removes a lot of the excess amalgam, and it finishes your margins as best as they can before you start carving. A quick stroke of the football burnisher can really take away a lot of the excess amalgam that you have, and you should really go for it with this instrument. Don't hold back. Next, you take the Acorn Burnisher. It has a little point, as you can see, and I can use that to make my central fossa and accessory grooves. So I start where one of the large grooves is. I press a little bit hard, then I move across the amalgam with less pressure, and when I get to the middle I press a little bit harder, then I move across the amalgam with less pressure, and I press hard again. That way I create a groove. I can continue to do that everywhere in the prep to create my anatomy. This also takes away some of the excess amalgam near the grooves. Next, I use my cleoid discoid carver. The rounded end I like better because it prevents me from gouging the inside of the prep. Always keep part of the carver on the tooth. That way it ensures that you don't overcarve into the prep and leave a ledge where bacteria can get stuck. So I just remove the flash, which is the extra amalgam on the tooth, by carving like this. I'm carving perpendicular to the margin, in a perpendicular direction to the margin. See them? And I follow the margin everywhere, perpendicularly. I can use the other end as well to get tight spots. And you can also use the hornback carver to get spots where your cleoid didn't. You can also, if you don't like your Acorn Burnisher, you can create all your anatomy with their hornback. I know some dentists to do that, but I find it easier to create the big grooves with your Acorn Burnisher. The nice thing about the hornback is that you can carve backwards and forwards. And that'll come in handy when you're in the mouth. Right now, when you can rotate the type down however you like, it doesn't matter much. Try to recreate your groove if you've lost it. And remove all the little flakes. And when you're done. Some professors like to take a little bit of cotton and dip it in water and smooth it, and use it to smooth the amalgam even further. And if you wait 24 hours, you can even polish your amalgam. But otherwise, at this step, you would just wait for the amalgam to set.